Hello, my name is Josie Rizek and I'm presenting the Village of Indian Hill for my community assessment. So to start off, I decided to do the Village of Indian Hill because every Christmas my family and I would go look at the lights of the big houses in Indian Hill. Through this project I discovered that the median household value is just under $1 million. So I highly suggest looking at Christmas lights there. Um, According to maps.net, there are about 5,000 upper class individuals that live in Indian Hill. If you look to the right of this presentation, it shows that about more than 75% of the population is white, which shows that there's very little diversity in this community. This community is a little under 20 square miles and it's really close to Cincinnati. It's only about 13 miles away. It's about a 20-minute drive from Cincinnati, and that was intentional for the original founders of Indian Hill. They wanted to be close to the city of Cincinnati to be able to thrive off of the industry there, but far enough away to be in a quiet residential area. There's actually a law in Indian Hill that says that in order to live in Indian Hill, it has to be either agricultural, like a business or building, or a residential building. So that made my job hard for aspects of the windshield survey. But Indian Hill does benefit and flourish by using resources from nearby communities like Madeira and Montgomery and Kenwood. So overall, Indian Hill is a quiet, safe community outside of Cincinnati's major industries. When looking at strengths and weaknesses, there is a huge public school system. The location is great, like I mentioned earlier, and only 2.6% of the population of Indian Hill is uninsured, which is way below the national average. Weaknesses: there's no population growth. The population of Indian Hill grew the most in between 1999 and 2000, which now we're looking at like that was over 20 years ago. And SIDS, so the Village of Indian Hill is in Hamilton County, Ohio, and often I'm referring to Hamilton County when I'm talking about SIDS because there actually surprisingly are not a ton of statistics relating directly to the Village of Indian Hill. So Village of Indian Hill, which falls in Hamilton County, has a way above national average of sudden infant deaths in the community, which is huge. And there's also no diversity, which I mentioned earlier. So going along with the nursing goal and priority of sudden infant death syndrome, the Village of Indian Hill needs to demonstrate a below the national average number in sudden infant deaths, since study shows that you can dramatically decrease the incidence of this by implementing certain interventions, which we'll dive into. For my nursing diagnosis, I said risk for sudden infant death in the Village of Indian Hill related to suffocation as evidenced by Hamilton County's 2019 Infant Mortality Annual Report. So jumping right in from the nursing diagnosis to the objectives, my two main ones were to increase antepartum mothers' caregiver knowledge regarding SIDS through pre- and post surveys, and to show an increase in the percentage of mothers that breastfeed in Indian Hill by 10% on the National Immunization Survey by 2023. So the NIS, or the National Immunization Survey, I found on the Ohio Department of Health's website, and it takes data from mothers at discharge of the hospital and makes them available to the general public online. And so breastfeeding your infant decreases the incidence of SIDS. While there's so many other interventions like lying supine, not smoking, being on a firm mattress with no stuffed animals or pillows or blankets, being in a well-ventilated room, not being premature, those kind of objectives, but right now we're just going to focus on the breastfeeding and education. So interventions for the breastfeeding and education and resources along, I said providing a health tab under Indian Hill's official website that includes information for caregivers of infants. I really loved utilizing the indianhill.org website. It was so helpful, and I'm sure the community uses it a lot, and having a health tab could potentially really benefit the community members. I said all caregivers would be provided with an American Academy of Peds safe sleep recommendations, similar to some of the stuff I mentioned earlier, taking pre and post surveys at Bethesda North. So since Indian Hill is only agricultural and residential, the closest major healthcare facility is B North, which at the top of the community of Indian Hill is about a 5-minute drive, and from the furthest point of Indian Hill would probably be a 15-20 minute drive. But it is the closest major hospital, which I am using that as a resource for pre and post survey knowledge of infants, caregivers, or new mothers. And finally, I said provide sections of SIDS education in public schools health classes, like questionnaires, resources. I looked up Hamilton County's rates of teen pregnancy, and they are alive and well and flourishing, so educating adolescents in the schools could potentially really prevent SIDS long term. So evaluating these pre and post surveys and the percentage of mothers that breastfeed on the NIS would tell us whether these interventions would work. And it has been shown that pre and post surveys work, and providing resources and educating people who are maybe potentially at risk. So these interventions, since there aren't any tertiary, because once an infant has SIDS, it's kind of past, they already have passed away, there's no management. Now, you could say that there's management for the mothers and providing them grief counseling, but that's a topic for another day. So these interventions are secondary and primary. Primary as in the education, secondary as in the screening. In summary, increased knowledge and awareness of SIDS would positively benefit Indian Hill. This community desperately needs resources for caregivers and their infants. There is no population growth. There is no diversity. This is a well-off community that needs and deserves this sort of information in order to have positive health outcomes. Thank you.